Hello and welcome back to what's going to be possibly one of my more worked up podcasts of the year. It's the Lap Down, Mood Down, Sport Down podcast. Dan's also here and he's going to try and counteract me, and we've got half an hour of trying to pick the bones out of the Monaco Grand Prix, and there was not many bones to pick out, I'll tell you that much. Hello, Dan.
Big jellyfish, wasn't it?
Oh, was it ever?
Not many bones.
One of those eternal jellyfish that just won't die.
Not many bones in those jellyfish. And a little bit stingy as well, which is, unpleasant.
Quite cool to look at,
okay.
though,
Let's talk about it. Let's get it out on the table. Let's hear from your point of view first, because, I mean, clearly you are the biggest Monaco fan in the world.
Yeah. I've made some notes from the Grand Prix.
Yeah, you told me pre-recording it just said the word wank a lot.
Wank, wank, wank. That's my Monaco Grand Prix summary.
That's just what you did instead of watching it.
Well, you know. Okay. I said in the build-up podcast to Monaco, well done to whoever at the FIA or, Liberty or whoever decided on the two-stop strategy. I will still back them up that I'm glad that we tried, and this Monaco wasn't necessarily any worse than the last Monaco. We just didn't go anywhere forward, but I'm doing a lot of baking recently, and if you don't try making a pizza scroll with pepperoni in it for it to go completely flat and not come out the oven very well, you don't know what you tried. You tried to make a pizza scroll, it didn't work.
At least you still get a pizza, though.
Yeah, but is it edible? I suppose Monaco was edible, just wasn't enjoyable. It's well done for trying. The intention was there. I think it did its job of maybe making all of us quite excited for what might happen. What happened was nothing, but it made us quite excited that something might happen.
It's very well summarised. I don't think I have much to add to it, to be fair. And I can't defend it, really. I will still sit here and say, as an event and as a place and as a thing, I still really like Monaco. I don't think I'm ever going to not like it, because it's not like this weekend has been dramatically worse than any of the last over the last, say, 5 or 10 years even. Not dramatically worse anyway. You could always have a conversation and say that it was marginally worse, but at the end of the day, the racing's been pretty poor there for the last couple of years anyway. So I don't necessarily think I'm even disappointed, because I'm not surprised. I think your disappointment comes from if you're actually expecting something, and I don't think I ever was. Even with that forced two-stop strategy, we tried, didn't we, in that preview, and we were kind of, what if somebody does this, and then somebody does that, and then somebody does this, and they kind of did it, to be fair. There were a couple of cars that boxed on lap 1 to get rid of those tyres, and we spoke about that as an option. Spoke about VSCs and safety cars, which we did get a VSC, didn't we? I think maybe 1, if not 2, but we didn't get the full safety car. And then we had the guys at the end, Max in particular, hanging out, waiting for that safety car, the VSC, the red flag, or whatever it might have been. But then I was sat there watching it, like I watched it later on, I caught up, and I was sitting there watching Max, and I was thinking, but the thing is if this red flag or the safety car comes now, and Max benefits from this and inherits the lead because he gets the tyre stop and Lando can't catch him up, and obviously towards the very end it wouldn't have mattered because they were right behind one another, but everybody would have just sat there and just gone, where's your shit anyway? So the two stops were an attempt at fun. They didn't really work. And the other thing that I hadn't really thought about, and I think it was something that Crofty said on the comms, it was like, well, the reason why they did it is because obviously, like, Perez and 3 other blokes had that aeroplane crash going up the hill 24 or 12 months ago. So they just decided to stick another pit stop in. I don't even think it was a particularly thought out process of something that they've looked at races over the last decade and gone, we could do this. It was kind of like, well, no, there was a crash, so we'll just put 2 stops in it.
Yeah. Monaco felt a little bit like a corporate away day, didn't it? That was a team-building day of fun. We're going to have fun. Look how fun this is going to be. There's a climbing. We're all going to stand on some wood planks as a team, and you have to go left, right. That'll be funny because Janine from accounts fell over, but she didn't hurt herself, so it was fine.
Shame.
And it's, what was interesting, actually, and maybe what everyone, I'll say, even might have slightly overlooked with the two-stop strategy idea, it can work as a concept, and I don't even mind the idea of maybe introducing it at other circuits throughout the year, almost like a sprint weekend. We have sprint weekends and then we have double stop weekends or whatever. But pit stop strategies are a matter of tyre offset, and they're a matter of pace differential and overtaking and giving yourself a better opportunity to overtake, because you're on the softs when they're on the hard, and your new softs can just fundamentally take turn 6 better than their old hards or whatever. So I almost realise now that I was slightly overlooking, okay, we might have had the potential for a direct pit stop undercut, like a one lap thing, but we never, the tyre strategy and the pit stop strategy was never actually going to do much apart from maybe jump you one position here, one position there, because you got your outlap right or wrong, or traffic or whatever. So, yeah, it's a very valid point that I hadn't considered of, did they actually think through maybe what they were hoping would happen? Or did they just throw another variable at the wall because variables make things happen, and then didn't make things happen?
But I don't think they were ever going. I don't think it was ever going to. That's the thing. I'm not. Look, these people that come up with these great ideas, I mean, they back them to the hill, don't they? And they'll sit there and they'll really give it the good ones. And for some ridiculous reason, somebody somewhere, some gullible person will listen to them and think, yeah, there is actually something here, and we're going to do this, and it's going to work. And if you believe your lie long enough, it does start to begin to feel the truth, I think. But I can't genuinely believe that anybody has stood there at the end of a big kind of office desk with a little paper flip chart coming up with their different reasons why, and everybody, all 16 executives around the mahogany table, has sat there and stood up at the end of it going, that is a bloody brilliant presentation, and we need that. That has to happen. Because surely somebody in their right mind has just gone, yeah, but it's still going to be really hard to get past people, even if we make them stop them 16 times.
It's the meme, and then you throw the bloke out the window. It's literally that meme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here's a question then for you on Monaco. I like throwing a big question out there, and I love curious on this. Will they stick with the two-stop strategy for Monaco next year, or will they admit defeat that it didn't work? Are they proud enough to admit defeat that it didn't work, or will they double down that, hey, it didn't make it worse, so we'll see if it happens next year?
Yeah, I think the latter, because I think the person who's managed to convince them it's a good idea in the first place will still be trying to convince them it's a good idea, and whoever is there, they will still continue to listen. And as you said, it didn't make it worse.
Yeah,
it certainly mixed things up. It certainly gave people different things to think about and get confused about and try and figure out as to what could or might not happen and things like that. So I suppose it provided talking points without really affecting anything at the final 5 minutes, but it did give people different looks for 78 laps or whatever it was, even though it was still pretty telegraphed, wasn't it?
It felt... I said in our preview podcast that Monaco feels like an exhibition event. It feels like one of those Red Bull, showcase show runs they do.
Yep.
And I feel like the forced two-stop made it feel more like that. Because, I mean, Kimi Antonelli finished that race, I believe, lapped 3 times. Like, Kimi Antonelli, he's probably comfortably the best rookie this year in terms of performance, and he's finished the Monaco Grand Prix without having an incident. He's not... Okay, he had an incident in quali, but in the race itself, it's not as if he, had a whole bunch of problems that put him 3 laps down. That's just how it worked out. And it just made the whole thing feel like it wasn't a race, and it was just a showcase of these cars doing a very impressive thing, driving around those streets at, I was going to say high speed, not high speed, but medium speed. That I don't think it was fun to watch. I don't think I had fun.
Well, no, yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, it was the top 5 that finished on the lead lap. Everybody else was lapped. And I think the other thing as well is I'm not really convinced I know how or why they were lapped. If that, the point you've just made about Antonelli, I don't know how Lando Norris lapped him 3 times.
Yeah.
That's the bit I'm confused about. And as you say, there wasn't an incident, there wasn't a sticky wheel nut, there wasn't a front wing change, there wasn't a 10-second stop-go penalty. None of this. George Russell was lapped twice.
And he had a drive-through.
Yeah. Alex Albon was lapped twice and he finished in the points.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, how? I don't understand how that's happened. And
Yeah.
it's because the teams have been trying to play silly buggers with their strategy.
Yes.
And to be fair, you can't blame them. They've been given a set of cards. They've tried to play them the best way they possibly can. And it's ended up falling in a way that we all knew it was going to happen, but we didn't quite see how they were going to get lapped twice. But had the cards fallen the right way for them, then we might have seen something slightly different.
Yeah. And I think it highlights the point perfectly. And all of this, and we will keep coming back to it, Monaco is just not applicable to modern F1 cars, and you can put as many gimmicky ideas into it as you want. Fundamentally, if you can barely fit two cars side by side at any point in that circuit, you're not going to have anyone overtake each other.
Precisely.
But the fact that we had two drivers, first in Lawson and then secondly in Albon, driving something like 6 seconds a lap off the pace of the leaders on what is not a long lap. It's like 1:09, I think now is the lap record that Lando did.
Yep.
So they're driving all of 10% slower than the lead drivers, and they still can't be overtaken by people that want to get past them. It's not like everybody was tyre saving. George Russell is in an objectively faster car than a Williams that was driving 6 or 7 seconds off the pace, and he couldn't get close to going past him until he just cheated. So if you can't overtake a car that's actively not racing in a car that's better, you're absolutely doomed from the start. You're absolutely doomed.
And I mean, the George kind of penalty there and the radio message afterwards, I think just confirmed the fact that it did become farcical.
Oh yeah.
I don't personally, I don't really have that big of an issue with what George did or said, and I actually kind of chuckled when it came across the broadcast, and she just kind of went, fuck it, I don't care, I'll just take the penalty and see what happens, because it had got to that stage where it felt that pointless. And I think if you were in that same seat, in that same scenario, I think you possibly just say fuck it and do the same. And almost what's the worst that can happen? Because if you finish outside the points, you finish outside the points, you get disqualified, you still don't get any points. If you get a 3-week drive-through penalty, you still don't get any points. So you just turn around and go, see what happens. Don't worry about it. And I don't necessarily mind it, but I think you're going to make the point that you're quite glad that the stewards, despite being farcical, did adhere it or did punish suitably for it.
And they said in their notes afterwards that they did. I think the fact that George got a little bit snarky on the radio, I think that's maybe what bumped them up a tier. And perhaps it might have just been a 10 if he hadn't have been so absolutely blatant about basically leaning out the window going, "Way!" to the stewards on the way past. I think they might have been slightly more lenient. It would have made no difference anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you know what? We criticise the stewards a lot. Fuck yeah, stewards. You've got your dick out for once, and you've seen something that's not right, and you've actually sort of not thrown the rule book at them, but thrown the rule book at them and gone, no, mate, you can't do that. We're not doing that, and you're not coming on the radio and saying, well, penalise me then. It's like, okay, so we're going to penalise you. Yeah, this is a dramatic take, and I don't fully sort of stand behind it myself, but it almost feels like you could just disqualify the bloke at that point, in the sense of he has just openly on the radio said, I cheated deliberately. I just thought, you know what, I'm not doing turns 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I can't be bothered with them. I'm just going to drive on. It's quicker. And there is a case, and it's not really a case I'm actually realistically making, but there is a case there for the stewards to go, okay, don't race then, mate. Here's a black flag. Go and fucking sit in the corner. If you're not going to race, don't race. But I'm kind of on George's side. Fuck it. Make a mockery of it. You know, I'm playing both sides of the argument here. I wouldn't have, I don't think, and there might not even be a sporting regulation that would have allowed them to, black flag a driver for, because George could argue, I didn't want to lock my brakes up, and then, I couldn't give the position back. There's always grey areas, but
we're all George Russell.
We are all George Russell.
What about positives though? We've slagged it off for 14 and a half minutes, but there aren't going to be many. But what are the positives to come out of the Monaco Grand Prix?
The biggest positive, to be honest, is actually what we said was going to be the biggest positive. The Monaco Grand Prix is bloody pretty. It's a terrible race, but it's a bloody pretty race. And well done to the TV directors and the technical team and the broadcast partners for coming up with some absolute banging camera angles this weekend. They had the drone camera that seemed to be able to show what felt like a video game angle of like 2/3 of the circuit, and there's cars everywhere. Stunning. Would quite happily have that as like a desktop wallpaper. That was superb. They had one that I think Martin Brundle at one point said he'd never seen that camera angle before. There was like a helicopter shot that was sort of low angle that, again, I saw like a couple of parts of the racetrack at once. Just make Monaco an exhibition and make it like a videography contest. Like, let's have a bunch of different cameramen be given a camera that broadcasts to the world feed. And, oh, no, I've got it. Dan, I've got it. I've worked out how we fix Monaco.
Oh, my. Okay, I'm ready.
It's not a race anymore. It's now a videography competition because each team employs a full-time videographer, right? You always see him cutting about with a little camera with the boom mic on it in the garage, right?
Yeah.
Each team submits 2 cameramen in overalls with the driver's eye camera helmet thing on as well. And they film the Monaco Grand Prix, which they're just doing Scalextrics laps at this point, right? It's not a real race. Best shot wins. And we're just trying to get the absolute best thing that makes Monaco actually look decent, rather than the racing.
I don't like it.
Oh.
I can see it, but I don't like it. I think, it is pretty. It is very pretty. And if you are going to have something boring to look at, you might as well make it like pretty and boring.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I suppose I think we spoke about dating the other week, didn't we, about some form of reference. I'm not sure, but it's possibly one of those. It's kind of like, well, there's a supermodel, nothing to talk about at all, or you get the mystery box, which is really quite kind of chatty, but you're just not sure. So which one are you going to go for? And what we had here is the supermodel with no personality, because everything, and the fact it was sunny as well, it just like the blue, the water, like I swear that's not normal water. It is that rich blue
people.
And
it's rich people water, Dan, is what that
genuinely,
is.
Yeah, it's basically just someone stood there with a bottle of Fiji water just pouring it into the harbour. It's stunning. The buildings are stunning. That drone shot, we saw it earlier this year, and I can't exactly remember the race that we saw it in, and I'm certain we sat here and went, give that to me in Monaco now.
Miami.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
The last Miami hairpin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was give that in Monaco on the little wiggly chicanes down the hill there. Yeah, it was good. The other good thing, a couple of good things actually. One, Isaac Hadjar. I mean,
wow.
What a resurgence from lap 1, turn 1, Australia did he even get to the start? No, he didn't, did he? He binned it. Well, I suppose it was turn 1.
Lap 0, turn 1. Lap -1, turn 1.
Yeah, exactly. But what a resurgence he's had in his Formula 1 career. Really good qualifying, and obviously finished 6th. He was a lap down, obviously.
Yeah.
Fan of the podcast.
Get him in.
But picked up 8 points, and Racing Bulls V-Carb or Alpha Tauri or whatever the piss and neck they're called this week, it got double points, so good for them. And the other thing, probably most important, is the fact that now there is only a 3-point gap in the World Championship with Lando winning that race. So we have got, we always had the battle, but it's just a bit closer again.
Yes. And also, I'm a McLaren fan, so by default, I'm also a Lando fan, sort of as part of that. And it was irritating me, all the social chatter of how washed Lando is and how he's not championship material and his head's not there and his driving's not there and he bottles it and all this and the other. The bloke was, I'm not going to say perfect over the weekend, but, and I know that, he didn't top any of the FP sessions or whatever, spare a thought for Charles on that, but in that race, he controlled that start to finish in tricky circumstances, being hunted down by Leclerc at the end. Yes, there was no real threat of him being overtaken, but, of the circuits to come and put your name back in the hat at, Monaco's not a bad one to do it. And it got real cute at the end there with his mum and his dad there, and, it's all warm and fuzzies, isn't it? But, yeah, we're bloody on. And Max again. I mean, Max's car is not competing realistically with the McLarens through slow wiggly stuff, just because it's Max Verstappen, he's continuing to keep it there. So he's going to remain. I'm referencing memes a lot this episode, but the Office meme with just Angela over Dwight's corner of over his shoulder, just coming in from the corner, is going to be Max all year. I think that it's always going to be the two McLarens, I think, leading the championship, unless one of them has a DNF and Max wins or something and he leapfrogs it briefly. But Max is always just going to be there, peering over your shoulder, waiting for you to shit the bed on something, which is kind of what he was doing this race, wasn't he? He was out in front, but he was waiting behind them to see if someone would shit the bed. But we've got proper battles. I'll ask the question again for you now. If you had to put a bet on today for who would win the World Drivers' Championship come the end of the year, who are you putting your money on today after the Monaco Grand Prix? We're a third of the way through the season.
Lando.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing with Lando is I think if pound for pound, raw pace, driver talent, I think he's better than Oscar. But I think with Oscar, you get 9.5s out of 10 every week from Oscar Piastri. You don't, and Lando goes 10, 10, 10, 12, 4. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is where he gets quite tricky. So I'm going to say Lando.
I like it.
Done.
I like it.
Lando. Up your Lando. Have we got anything else really to talk about from Monaco?
Yeah, a couple of little AOBs, I suppose. First of all, it's another shout out for Weeyums.
Good for them.
Double points. They just seem like a team that's in a really good place at the minute, I think. And I think that was summed up by there's been a little bit of team orders messiness in recent races. And here you had a really casually executed driver swap that sort of made sense in the moment. They were obviously a little bit like VCARB playing a real team game with playing silly buggers. But there was a particular radio message, and I don't have the actual transcript from it, but they basically went back to Carlos and said, hey, we will swap the cars back. And I think Carlos basically said, yeah, not yet. Let's just keep going how we are for now. Alex will finish P9, don't worry. And it's a really simple sentence that might not actually have been as loaded as I'm maybe trying to make it and romanticizing it. But when we compare that with the Ferrari fun and games that we've had before, and to a certain extent, a little bit of McLaren games that we've had before, it's such a comforting way to have phrased it. Like, if we go back to, and I can't remember what race it was last year, Hungary last year with the McLarens, where it just got prams and handbags, and that was the worst way of doing team orders. This is the opposite from Carlos Sainz. This is, not a problem, absolutely, 100%. He will finish P9. Let's just see if something weird happens in the meantime, but don't worry, we'll swap him back. And I think that's just sort of symptomatic of how Williams are doing at the minute as a team.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think there's probably a little bit of tax on it with the fact that it was quite so docile in the race itself. I think that possibly was a contributing factor, and I think by that time it was almost a case of, I don't care anymore. Yeah. And that possibly was an element. But I think generally speaking, I think that message would have been consistent throughout a lot of the Grand Prix that we've had so far. And at the end of the day, if Williams and James Vowles are really pushing externally this 2025 doesn't matter motif, then you'd think that the internal one would be slightly stronger. So, maybe it is a case of Carlos is going, don't worry about it. But next year, we're going to have a proper ding-dong at this because we're going to be fighting for podiums type thing. So we'll kind of see how that's worked.
Good Williams domination, ball fans. And then I have, just on the Gasly one, and it's sort of a race control point of order, I suppose. That was pretty bad from Gasly to have driven 2/3 of a lap, actively shredding bits of car with half the car under him and a wheel that was no longer attached. Now, you got to get careful when you start having outside influences on it directly. Should the race director or race control not be able to actively and directly step in there and tell a team or the driver directly, retire the car. I am retiring you. Pull off now. There is a slip road coming up, turn 9. You are to pull into that slip road. Your car is, I am withdrawing you from this Grand Prix. You may not return to the pits, because that starts to affect other people. Oscar nearly got overtaken by Max because he was actively trying to avoid some of that debris to a more careful level than Max did. And Max nearly did what Max Verstappen does. Fair play to him, tried to jump on the opportunity. Formula E, the race director, can speak directly to teams and drivers. He can broadcast himself into their helmets. And I just wonder whether... No, it doesn't happen often, right? And I'm coming up with something for a rare situation, perhaps. But it just felt like race control, and they can black flag or whatever, but should be able to be like, now, stop the car. Get out of the car. You're done. Stop driving around.
Probably. There's not much of an argument, I don't think. I suppose Gasly could argue and say I couldn't see that it was as bad as what it was. If he's obviously the view that he's going to get from that cockpit, looking through a slot in a post box is going to be quite tough. And the decision by the team might have been a case of can you get it back? Pierre might have wanted to get it back because he couldn't be bothered to walk 5 yards from one bit to the other. I don't know. I've got no idea, but yes. Probably right, and particularly in that kind of environment, that if you do pick up a puncher going around to back at, 130 mile an hour, that could be quite ouchy.
Because the teams are always going to try and tell them to get back, aren't they? And the driver's always going to want to get back, because if it was just, say, the tyre that had gone, and the tyre was shredding things or whatever, then maybe they could have stayed in the race. But it just feels... It's dangerous. I mean, the bloke couldn't stop himself. I don't know if you caught that, but
well, I didn't see it, but I heard they'd spoken about it. I think he had to get stopped by another team.
Like the mechanics had to basically put their hands on the car and like try and slow it down. It's like that is concerning.
That I think that's almost the more dangerous part of it. I think, but
he didn't.
Yeah,
he was still.
Hey, at the end of the day, we said Monaco was boring. We said it was shit. It created a little bit of drama again. Maybe it was Formula One telling Pierre's brakes to fail because they've enforced mandated 2 stops. So maybe it's one of those.
Yeah. And finally, Lance Stroll is the king of Monaco. Well done, Lance.
What a guy. He doesn't get flowers very often, does he?
He does not get flowers very often. He pulled off the only legal on-track racing sporting overtake of the Monaco Grand Prix. And if you don't need any other reason to scrap that shambles of a Grand Prix, there it is. We didn't even see it on the broadcast. Couldn't even tell you what happened. But he did it. He jumped, I think it was Hulk on like the last lap. And
it was a good move.
Oh,
it was a good move.
I'm sure
Coming
it was
out
a good
the tunnel.
move.
Coming out the tunnel. Lance was on the right-hand side. Hulkenberg defending the inside. Lance took the first part of the little chicane there, round the outside, then had the inside lane and got the big beans out of it towards the back. So, good move.
If Lance Stroll can overtake, clearly there's not an overtaking problem at Monaco.
Well, yeah, exactly. Drivers, stop moaning. Get on with it.
Is Lance Stroll the best driver on the grid technically if he can pull off overtakes at Monaco?
Yeah. Well, Adrian Newey said that he felt that Lance gets a bad rap. And Adrian Newey knows a thing or two, doesn't he, about Formula One cars?
I'm just looking at the data in front of me, and I'm seeing Lance Stroll pulled off an overtake and no one else did. So, just looking at the numbers.
Ironically, he probably didn't win the award for DHL Overtake of the Day.
No, do we count
George's?
Do we count Kimi and Bortoletto? Is that 2 overtakes?
No.
Well, officially, there was an overtake there, and then he overtook him back again, and one of them ended up in the wall.
No, the Bortoletto overtake was good. The Kimi Antonelli overtake was just him punting him into the wall. That's not an overtake.
Well, he got past him.
There was the overtake where the car went flying down the pit straight, and the other one was stationary that was quite exciting.
Yes, true.
And we saw it twice this week as well, because they forced 2 stops.
Tommy 2 times.
Ah.
Right. Let's finish this off then with some numbers that I want to hear, because they're numbers that work in my favour. Dan, whisper sweet nothings about the Random Driver Championship into my ear, please.
Yeah, well, there's not much point really to dwell on it, but you picked up 37 points and I made 2. So I've moved from 100 to 102 points. You've moved from 92 all the way up to 129, having fabricated Lando Norris and Max Verstappen out of the wheel that you've created. So good for you. Well done. I do think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've had 8 rounds now of this. So it would be of a fair and even moment for the Lapdown FIA to impose the shuffle button on the wheel.
There's a technical directive coming in on the wheel.
Yeah.
The shuffle button is being shuffled.
And it's fair for both teams because we've had an even number of first drivers and second drivers. So
yeah.
I think that's what we have to do.
The technical directive comes in and we're blaming none other than Wheel of Names for that. It's not our fault, but Wheel of Names is not as random, perhaps, as it suggests it is.
It turns out to be quite consistent.
It knows where it wants to stop the wheel. Right then.
But yeah, that's it.
That's Monaco. That's all we've got to talk about on Monaco. We've got Espanyol next. We are off to Barcelona, which I'm looking forward to. It's one of my preferred tracks on the game, and that's how I measure everything in terms of my Formula One interest. So we'll be back later in this week to pick some new drivers with the new technical directive, and to talk about some other stuff there. In the meantime, Dan, they can go and see you where?
At Dan Jads on the internet. If you have any interest in cricket whatsoever, it's a good place to be.
There you go. That's the way to do it. And if you want to watch me play games on the internet, twitch.tv/HeyLookIt'sAlex, at LapdownPod on Insta and TikTok and YouTube, and lapdownpod@gmail.com if you want to send us any thoughts about the Monaco Grand Prix, how you would fix the Monaco Grand Prix, why Lance Stroll is obviously the most technically proficient driver on the grid. Leave us a review, share it with someone, go back and listen to them all again. Who knows? But we will see you in a couple of days, everybody.